Welcome to the Lagoon City Parks and Waterways Commission agenda meeting for September 24th, 9:30 a.m. Before we start the meeting, we'll have our recording played by our clerk.
Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Township of Ramara YouTube channel. Be advised that by attending a public meeting of the Commission, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and will form a part of the public record. The chair, CAO, or secretary have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming in exceptional circumstances where the content of the debate is considered inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in unacceptable behavior or comments.
Thank you, Amber. The adoption of agenda and/or agenda additions, recommendations that the special Lagoon City Parks and Waterways Commission agenda dated September 24, 2024 be adopted, presented from the floor. Commissioner Mason, second by the councillor. Any discussion on that? All in favor? It's passed. Does anybody have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? No. Presentation receiving petitions and deputations that the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority monitoring proposal and chloride project. What's the recommendation? That a presentation from Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority with respect to monitoring the proposal and a chloride project be received for information. Put on the floor, Councillor Bell, second by Commissioner Mason. I believe it's being done by Zoom. And is that Don Goodyear I see up there? Okay. Welcome, Don. Can you hear me?
I can. Good morning. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I'll pass it to you. In your presentation, do you want us to ask questions at the end or during your presentation?
I'm easy. You can ask along the way.
Okay, I usually find that easier, but it's always better to ask the president.
Fair enough.
Okay. Away we go.
Well, all right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for the time on your agenda this morning. I think it was Councillor Bell who started a conversation a little while ago about some interest in better understanding a couple of the challenges within Lagoon City, specifically nutrients and the associated kind of aquatic plant species that you have in the lagoons, and secondly, chloride concentration. So I don't have formal slides to go through with you this morning. I thought I'd just give a brief overview of each of the proposals that we've pulled together in response to those kind of concerns and interests raised, and then open the floor for question if that works for everyone. But along the way is great. So the first, and do you have both proposals available to you?
I have mine in front of me. Yeah, we all have them on our computer. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll start with the chloride proposal. It's a little more succinct. So certainly chloride concentrations in Lake Simcoe are a challenge. We've seen an increase, a steady increase, increasing trend of chloride concentrations within the lake for the last number of years. We suspect that's very similar in the lagoon themselves. And with the kind of embayments in the lagoon, I think there's a question out there about whether there is greater concentrations within that within those lagoons than the kind of lake proper, so to speak. So what we've proposed is a project to get a handle on the sources of chloride into the lagoon specifically. That would include an assessment of municipal winter road management practice to try and get a handle on how much salt is being applied to town roads. Similarly, for any county road management that happens, not sure what the split is, but want to make sure we're catching all potential sources. The trickier, if you will, source of chloride to get a handle on is for private property. And often those are the larger sources, large facilities like commercial properties and condominiums. Are often large sources of chloride concentration. So the project would also intend to characterize the salt application for those privately managed kind of large parking lot facilities. And finally, individual homeowners, how much salt is being applied on driveways and walking paths for homeowners. So examining over the course of not this winter, but next, those sources. I guess there's a possibility we could start this winter, but we definitely want to catch the full season to get a good characterization. What's involved is some communication, some outreach, some interaction with contractors and town staff to try and quantify things, a little bit of spot checking of application and the outcome. Not proposing any sampling in this go around, but there could be, once a bit of a baseline is established, kind of the next logical step would be to look at opportunities for, while balancing public safety, of course, and salt application. Are there opportunities to reduce salt application in any of those areas, whether it's the road management or the private parking lot management or individual homeowner application? So using best practice information, we could potentially follow up this characterization with okay, now what do we do about it phase, if that's of interest. So that's in a nutshell, that is the chloride characterization proposal. We'll maybe pause to see if anyone has any questions for clarification.
I've got a few, but I'll let the counselor answer first.
Good morning, Don. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good. So I guess with the sodium one, we do use reduced salt content within the township. So from a township road perspective, there wouldn't be probably anything much there. But I guess when we started this conversation way back when, the hope was that the province was going to be investing into sodium chloride research so that we would be able to find grant funding to do this part of the project. And I'm just wondering if that's still something that the province is like, would that be an option for us to look at in order to implement this piece?
Thanks, Councillor Bella. I'm not aware of any current funding opportunities provincially for salt application. Through the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, we have in the past been funded to do some salt management case studies. So potentially at a future call for proposals for the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan funding, this is something we could consider. The costs outlined in this project, we don't have a source for those at the moment.
Thank you. And then my second question is where I know that the Ontario landscape folks have been working with the province and working toward that New Hampshire model. So do you have an update on where that is? Because I think that might be the thing that is the catalyst for funding availability.
Right. I wish I had better news. I haven't. It's not that it's bad news. It's just no news. So there has been some lobbying to the provincial government to adopt, as you pointed out, the New Hampshire model, which, for the benefit of everyone else, is a great approach to risk management in New Hampshire. What they've done is instituted it's kind of a licensing program. So contractors that are licensed and apply salt using best practices and not more than that are then held harmless in cases of slip, trip, and fall, provided they can demonstrate they've followed those best practices and they've actually implemented what they say they have. So a lot of record keeping, a lot of training, but what it avoids is you've probably experienced this. You go to the mall and you're more likely to trip on a pile of salt than you are on ice because they apply so much. There's there's such a fear over liability that over application is pretty common in private parking lot management, and New Hampshire has made some great strides there. We've lobbied the province to adopt that approach. So far, kind of positive noises from the Ministry of Environment, but the attorney, but the kind of legal side of the province is not there yet.
Commissioner Mason?
Certainly the liability issue. I was on the board of the condo that I live in, as well as a property manager for a couple of years for that property. And certainly the liability issue is high on the list of board and property managers with regards to slip and fall. And I know that over application is certainly something that's happened in the past. Certainly the previous contractor that we had was over applying salt. It was just crazy the amount of salt that he was pouring out on the driveways. I guess the approach we might want to take with some of these private contractors, maybe see what we can do to mix this sand salt mixture rather than just a straight salt mixture, and see if we can maybe work something that gets to a level of safety without getting over application of salt onto the parking lots. I think
Sure.
that's the approach we might take, is to start working with the private contractors and see what we can do to mitigate the amount of salt that they're distributing.
Definitely anything we can do to reduce salt application for sure. It's interesting, sand salt mixes. It's almost counterintuitive. The sand on roads in our climate and in this part of the world surprisingly isn't that effective. You think of sand on a shuffleboard table versus sand on sandpaper. So if you can somehow fix the sand to the surface like sandpaper, then it's great for traction. But if it's just loose and within kind of a snow, salt, sand mix, it actually makes it increases it doesn't have the effect that's intended. It's almost aesthetic. So the sand is actually something that we might be able to wean out of application practice, and surprisingly, you'll find less salt application.
I have a few questions. A couple have been answered. I just wanted to verify a couple. With this report that you do and we finish it, how would that information help us as a commissioner?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So I think if I understand the function of the commission appropriately, and correct me, and this may be my kind of ignorance here, but you have some good working relationship with the town, and you have some good working relationships with the community in Lagoon City. So the identification of over application is great information you can point to when you are working with those partners to say, hey, here's an opportunity to do a little better. We can reduce salt application here without compromising public safety. And we can point to this characterization and some best practices. That's my hope anyways.
Okay, because I remember as a counselor, we were the first year I was a counselor, we received an award from you guys for using the sand and salt mixture and not putting any salt really on our roads, maybe 10% or 15%.
Okay.
So I'm still looking at, because we do know that the townhouses do put a lot of salt, as you heard from our other commissioner. And I have to just confirm, there is no law or no control on how much salt you can put, as much down as you want.
Yeah, there's no reporting or oversight I'm aware of.
Okay, and I agree 100% with you that sand and salt that we have here, I find it very dangerous, actually. You can see the difference when you come in from the different roads where Durham salts the living heck out of their road, and it's like day and night, then we hit the ice and the pack down snow where we're here. And I think if it was like that on the 400, you'd have so many accidents over there, it'd be unbelievable. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was, is any other municipalities involved in doing tests like this, like studies, I guess?
There are municipalities that are kind of constantly evolving their road management practice, and we have some municipal partners that are involved in the Freshwater Roundtable. That's the group that has kind of lobbied the province for that New Hampshire approach. This is a pretty proactive and somewhat unique approach, to be fair. This isn't something we do across the watershed.
Okay, because as I have read, like in the newspaper and in different reports, that they talk about how much salt is over the Holland Marsh and up in that area. And I was just wondering if they had done some tests and whether or not they'd utilized it to do something to make it better, or change something, or found something different, or nothing.
We do monitor for chloride across the watershed, and we do have a kind of a road salt working group with municipal members on it. So we regularly share that information, and at that working group, they exchange kind of best practices. And there are some municipalities around the watershed that are doing some great things. That's a forum for them to share those ideas. This is a little bit of a step beyond, a sample of chloride concentration. It's a real characterization of sources to arm you with more detailed information to take that next step. That's not something we've done a lot of places.
Thank you. And one last question. This brine that they put on the road, does that work better than soaking it with salt, or?
I think some studies have shown that liquid application combined with kind of pre-wetting, so pre-treatment of roads before a storm, and then a liquid brine, there's less chloride needed to keep a safe road condition. So there's case studies for different application best practices that we have available that we're happy to share with contractors and the town. And but to answer your question, the liquid application does reduce this amount of salt needed for the same road condition as solid rock salt.
Thank you, Don. Those are my questions. Did you have any more? Okay, we're done with that now.
Okay, great, thank you. So the next one, the more I guess involved, if you will, was the characterization of the Lagoon City waterways from a nutrient perspective, an aquatic plant perspective, and a sediment quality perspective. So I guess the similarity with the chloride characterization is trying to get a handle on where the nutrients are coming from, and how significant the kind of concentrating effect is of the lagoons themselves. So setting up some samplers for the inputs into Lagoon City to characterize the water coming in, and then the proposal documents a series of sampling events at I think at 6 locations within the canals for water, sediment, and aquatic plants to characterize what's there. Is it what we are assuming is there? Is it better? Is it worse? And then with the inputs, trying to see can we explain all of that through just the inputs? Is there some kind of concentrating effect within the lagoons? And then finally, are there management practices that we're not thinking of today that could help? So again, kind of a baseline study. give us a handle on, what's there, where it's coming from, and then we can think about what to do about it. Is the notion behind this proposal. Had a few conversations with Councillor Bell and others on this one, and there are a few embayments around the lake, similar kind of canal settings, and they are kind of the perfect storm for some of these aquatic plant and algae species. So just wanted to kind of be totally upfront that while we can develop recommendations to reduce nutrient inputs and thoughts on other management practices, we're not aware of any silver bullets, so to speak. So just trying to be as upfront as we can here. And that's that's that. I can get into some of the details if that's of interest in terms of the scope of work. But in a nutshell, it's sample the inputs, sample the lagoons themselves to characterize a baseline for nutrients, plants, and sediment.
Questions? Do you have a question? No, I'll wait.
Thank you, Don. So I guess one thing I want to say as we kind of roll into the whatever discussion ensues from this point is, and you and I did have a conversation at one point a few months back. So at the time when I first initiated this discussion, it did result from years of residents asking questions about, are we sure that we are doing the right practices? And that we have the clean flow system implemented, we have water movers, we do the harvesting, and we do the annual application of herbicide. So we have a number of pieces in place, but at the time that I started this discussion, I was not aware of the Ramara Creek sub-watershed plan, which had been completed back in 2015. So it was a bit of a different perspective at that point. And so kind of modifying the thinking toward it now is, well, we did do that sub-watershed plan back in around 2015. We didn't necessarily undertake the fulsome recommendations. And even in that short list of 85 recommendations, most of those I believe have, or at least many of those, I don't think have been implemented at this point. So the perspective might have changed from when we first started the conversation to today,
Sure.
Just as far as it might now be, the look might be what has changed in the last decade versus right. And I still think it's valid. And I still think we wouldn't be able to do those 85 implementations even today if we didn't know where we were now versus where we were then. So from a funding perspective, things might change on our end. So I want to just say that too, because when it initiated, the thinking was a little bit different.
Thanks for flagging that, Councillor Bell. It's a great point. I'm a science geek, so I love these research type projects. But sometimes the best bang for the buck is doing stuff on the ground. So there certainly is an option for us all to consider, which is, rather than another study, let's invest in implementation of some of those recommendations, some of those efforts that were identified to improve things. I did share with our restoration team some of the opportunities identified in that subwatershed plan. So we are kind of looking to pick up our side of some of those recommendations, but it points to a number of different partners, the province, the town, and others. So it's a great point. There's already some great information out there on what could improve things.
Yeah, and I guess on that note, but I mean, I guess your opinion I'm asking for though, as far as where do you see knowing now that I didn't know that when I started this conversation, this scope of work, do you still feel like these are the things we would need to know today in order to start to implement some of those pieces?
So I guess I'm of two minds. I think that this study will help pinpoint which of those recommendations would be most effective. And at the same time, there's kind of no regrets if we just do the good things that are suggested in those recommendations. So with limited resources, this might help us focus them. Depending on how limited the resources are, it may be better just to start working down the list. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yes and no is where I'm going. So we definitely could. More information is always helpful at pinpointing which of those recommendations would have the greatest impact, and at the same time, just rolling up our sleeves and getting going is a no regrets approach.
Thank you. Sorry, one more. And then I did note that there's going to be a new pages or sections of the LSRCA's website dedicated to the sub-watershed plans. So I guess that I'm hoping that means the direction across the board, across all members, is revisiting all those sub-watershed plans and a more robust implementation.
Yeah, you're correct. So there is on the website right now, there is a new tool that we've developed to house watershed plans. Over time, all of the sub-watershed plans that we have are going to be refreshed, and what we're trying to do with this kind of digital tool is make them living documents so that they don't become dated or stale or sit on someone's shelf, that they're easier to access, they're easier to query, to find what you're interested in or what you need to do your work. In terms of the implementation, it doesn't provide any new tools or resources there, but it does make the recommendations easier to find and filter and okay, what am I supposed to be doing again? It's a very quick search of the website.
You have any questions? I have a few questions, and I'm not sure if you asked that. There's no grants for this?
I didn't specifically ask that question.
Okay. Are there grants for this study?
There are not. Both studies identified are above and beyond our budget. A couple of years ago, the province amended the Conservation Authorities Act to very clearly outline what we are to do and not do. They did leave kind of a door open for us to partner with municipalities for other things that municipalities wanted us to do. So we, as an example, we do some water quality sampling in the city of Barrie for an infrastructure project that they're in the midst of, that's kind of above and beyond our core mandate. So they call that Category 2 funding. So we have an agreement with them to fund that extra work. This would be considered above and beyond our core mandate, and so there isn't a fund available that we can tap into for this, unfortunately.
Okay. And the study that we had before, is that the study you were just talking about, Councillor?
So the study that Commissioner Johnson is speaking of is one of the studies that appeared inside of the sub-watershed report. And that was the study that was done by Lakehead University back also in that 2015 time period. So there was a research project done then, and I don't know, you won't have it top of mind or at your fingertips right now, but it did look at some aspects, but I'm not sure even a decade ago that it would have looked at what you would look at today, as far as the actual plants and things that are in the waterways. I think it looked at, I know that it looked at waterfowl, for example, was part of it, but I don't know how in depth it got into the source of the nutrients, that particular study.
Yeah, I was just going to say the study did cover our lagoons, because I know I went out with them when I was 10 years ago when I was first councillor looking at it, and they did the study of the water. I guess the clarity. They took samples. They did core down below. They took core samples. And they did it at about 7 or 8 locations in Lagoon City, and I was really disappointed because when we finally got the report, we had a big thick book and it had all the chemicals and everything that they found. And looking at it, being a layperson, I had no idea what it meant. So when we called in the professor, who didn't want to even come here, we actually had to threaten him we weren't going to pay him. We weren't going to pay for the study or we wanted our money back. And he came in and basically he told us that, yeah, the birds pooping in our water caused pollution. And that was all we got out of the whole meeting. And I was really disappointed on that study because I know it was a study that was done for 2 years or 3 years. And there was a lot of work done and they did a lot of tests and samples. And to me, it was never used. I never did really understand what it was all about. And that's why I was just questioning if you've ever looked at this book that was put out back then.
I'm not familiar with it. I'm going to dig that up and take a look. That is a frustrating summary of
if you wouldn't mind looking at it and getting back to me and letting me know, I'd be really interested in your input on it because I scoured it and I really didn't get anything from it at all. I spent almost a couple hours going through trying to understand what it meant, and it really didn't help me at all.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look. That's disappointing.
And then my last question for you is just curiosity. The blue-green algae that's been found on Lake Simcoe this year, is that the first time? Like, I never thought we ever had it actually on the lake. Like, I know Lake Erie gets it, but I never thought Lake Simcoe ever had it.
You're correct. There's been, to our knowledge, one report of blue-green algae on Lake Simcoe prior to this summer, and it was a very small, isolated, wouldn't even call it a bloom, an isolated example, a couple of feet across. This summer, we've seen lake-wide blooms of blue-green algae. It's still investigating the symptoms, the causes, but weather is a big part of it. Climate change and the weather patterns that we had this spring and summer, traditionally, Lake Simcoe does not get blue-green algae blooms. There's lots of other natural algae in the lake, but blue-green blooms are. You're right. This is the first time we've had a lake-wide experience.
Really? And is that because I'm just roughly thinking? Was that because we didn't have the wind, we didn't have the water movement? We had I don't think it was heat that much. We weren't that hot this year.
Right. Yeah. The intense rainfall, which shunts nutrients into the lake, and then this temperature swings are kind of a working hypothesis. The other challenge that's new is the quagga mussels. So we did a survey last summer of the quagga mussel population, and it's basically lake-wide, and they changed the lake chemistry and the lake ecology quite a bit. We're still trying to understand exactly what the kind of new balance is, but we suspect they're part of this equation somehow, and part of the reason that we haven't seen it before.
So the new mussels from the zebra are actually changing the lake even more so from the zebra mussels?
Yes, the quagga mussels are present in deep water. The zebra mussels were generally near shore, but quaggas are everywhere, and they've completely outcompeted the zebras. The zebra mussels are almost gone. Most of the mussels in the lake now are quagga, and they're everywhere.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to, Don, since Cal opened up the conversation, maybe it's another opportunity for you to explain what the change in phosphorus is you're starting to see as a result of the difference and what's happening with the quagga mussels.
Yeah, sure. So there used to be a fairly well understood kind of relationship between the amount of phosphorus entering the lake, the dissolved phosphorus concentrations in the lake, and the dissolved oxygen concentration at depth. So dissolved oxygen at depth is what is crucial for cold water fish habitat. So lake whitefish and lake trout, they need, about 6 milligrams per liter of dissolved oxygen at depth in late fall to survive and naturally reproduce. So that's what the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan target of 44 tons phosphorus is built on, that relationship between phosphorus inputs, phosphorus concentration, and then dissolved oxygen. And what we've seen in the last few years is a bit of a disconnect between those three dots in the equation. So we've seen high nutrient loads and high dissolved oxygen concentrations. So it used to be the opposite. There used to be an inverse relationship between phosphorus loading and dissolved oxygen concentrations, which is the whole reason for our reduce phosphorus inputs at all costs approach to managing the watershed. Not that we've changed that; it's still reduce phosphorus at every opportunity, but the lake is changing, and there isn't that direct connection between DO and phosphorus load.
Interesting. And they're blaming that on the mussels.
Mussels and climate change are what we suspect, but we don't have a clear answer. Sorry, Councillor.
Awesome. Very interesting. Is there any other questions or? No, you're good. Well, it was an interesting discussion, and I appreciate you coming here, Don, or not coming here, but speaking to us. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for your time.
Have a good day.
You as well. Bye now.
That was interesting. Let's just accept this. Yeah, okay. The recommendation is that the presentation from Lake Simcoe, I already read all this. It's there. All in favor?
Well, I think we might have more recommendations though, because I want to send things to council to talk about as well.
What, with what we just talked about?
Yeah.
You should get him to speak to actually council.
Yeah, I want to actually change that or amend that motion. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay, and recommend that.
yeah, I want to. So I guess we should talk about it then. I just need to go to the washroom.
Okay.
Can I?
All right, we'll take a 3-minute break. Thank you, Ashley. Okay, do you want to have some discussion with this,
Yeah, I think so.
deputation?
Yeah, I think so. I think, first of all, and as I said to Don, when I first opened up the conversation, it was a direct result of residents, and it does go back to when I moved in 2015, so it's not new. But just asking, how do we know we're doing the right things? And so the idea was, if we were able to figure out what the inputs are into the waterways, we would kind of better understand. And I guess my thinking at that time was a little bit different because I wasn't aware when I first opened up the conversation. The Ramara Creek sub-watershed plan is actually not posted on Ramara's website, at least it hasn't been. And so the way that I became aware of it was actually because the Simcoe Conservation was making changes to their website. And so when they started to index all of their documents, all of a sudden Google pulled that result. So then I said, oh, wait a minute, I might have initiated a conversation that has sort of already been initiated, mind you, a decade ago. So I guess, and the implementations in the sub-watershed plan obviously come with a cost. So, you'd have to be able to fund those. But overall, I guess what I'm kind of looking at now, it's just a different perspective. And I think that it's the township's responsibility to, the township is a partner at Lake Simcoe Conservation, and it's actually a township-wide responsibility to protect Lake Simcoe. It's not just the responsibility of the residents of Lagoon City, and also the inputs are coming from places other than within Lagoon City. So my recommendation that I would like to see on the characterization aspect is that it would be forwarded actually to council. So separate that report, and that we would put a motion to forward to council for consideration. Because overall, the larger picture is that sub-watershed plan, and this would just be updating the data that would help on the implementation side of that plan. So my motion that I want to put on the floor on the characterization is that we send it to council to be reviewed, and we leave it with council because I think it's outside the purview of the
Exactly.
commission.
And probably talk to Don Goyer. He's
Yeah,
very interesting
definitely.
on Lake Simcoe. Yeah.
Definitely. And I had,
Yeah.
and I had a good conversation with Don over the course of the summer. And so I sort of knew that the sub-watershed plans were going to start bubbling back up to the forefront. And then that was kind of when I said, okay, what? But I still think we need to go through this process because we have a responsibility for management of the waterways, which includes the health of the waterways. I just feel like with this piece and this project, this is talking about all of the inputs, and this is talking about what is.
So let's put your
leaving the
motion
lagoons and
forward
going to
then,
the
and then
lake.
we'll talk about this.
Yeah,
in
so I
budget
think,
ourselves.
so the first recommendation, that would be what I would amend our recommended motion would be that the characterization study is sent to council. And then that's that piece. And then on the sodium piece though, that has nothing to do with the township. That's our condominiums within Lagoon City.
And there's no law to stop them from doing it. So.
No, but I still think we should do the research because I think that as the sodium chloride work moves forward at the Conservation Authority and at the province, there are changes that are being lobbied for. And we wouldn't know what is being done in Lagoon City and how much salt is entering the lagoons and the impact of the salt if we don't figure it out. So I think that we would be executing our mandate to protect and manage the waterways if we were to find out what kind of salt we're adding to them. So, and we couldn't ask that to get sent to the township because it's only our condominiums that are using the salt. So I think that one we should consider doing because I think that the components of it are also inclusive of education. And ultimately, I think that you will see some resolutions coming from the province on sodium chloride use. So I would advocate that that's a project we undertake. That's my opinion.
I think when I heard it, like to me, it looks like a bit of a waste of money. It's the fact that we know that they're putting salt there. We know it's going in the water. It's not good for the lagoons, but there's nothing that we can say. And I don't want to get involved in telling them on how much salt they should put because the first accident that happens then, because that's what you guys are scared to death. And that's why you salt the little cheeses out of it. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if I want to get involved in that, right? Like, But anyways, we'll talk about that, I guess, in the budget, right? Yeah. Right. We'll talk that in budget, right?
So that we'd have to send it to budget discussions, even though budget
Well,
discussions are
it's-
about to happen now.
It's there already.
It's not, the recommendation doesn't say that. The recommendation says receive for information.
No, but it's here already. It's on our budget.
But I'm just saying, so this recommendation reads receive for information right now,
Okay.
the
But
recommendation.
you want
So
to say send it to budget?
I think we have to, or else we can't send it to budget.
It's already in budget though.
But well, then it shouldn't, then the recommendation shouldn't have said receive as information.
This is right.
But either way, the recommendation isn't going to match what we're about.
It
to
says
do.
chlorine case study is
You're
55.
receiving his presentation, not what's.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I just want to be sure.
So we're
It's
receiving. the
procedurally, I don't want to have any questions. That's all.
What's right? So we're receiving the presentation, but you want to, we've already added the other one in. So in this one, we'll just receive the presentation.
I think both of them are already in. So,
Okay, so
so
Did you
when do
change-
you want us to make the motion to send the characterization to council? That's why I'm just trying to figure out process.
Yep, through your chair. I think that with respect to the chloride project, that can be addressed during the budget deliberations, but the monitoring project, you could amend this resolution to request that it be forwarded to council. I think it would be best to be added to this resolution.
okay. So is that all right with you?
Thank you. Yes, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we do it right.
You okay with that? Okay. Do we need to read that again, Amber? or- Don't rush. We can take our time.
Through your chair. So, is it safe to say that it's called a characterization study, or we continue to call it the monitoring proposal and that it be forwarded to council?
I think that it has I think that they have called it characterization of Lagoon City waterways to identify potential management options. That's how they've titled it. So maybe if we just stick with that title, just so that when it shuffles from us to council, it doesn't get confusing.
Okay, so the motion reads that a presentation from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority with respect to monitoring proposal and chloride project be received for information, and that the characterization of Lagoon City waterways to identify potential management options study be forwarded to council for budget deliberations, the 2025 budget deliberations.
Are you okay with that? Good. All in favor? Let's pass. Okay, next one is the accounts and budgets. Budget deliberations, recommendation that the proposed 2025 Lagoon City Parks and Waterways budget be received, and that Lagoon City Parks and Water request the following amendments, which we'll add in, I guess, and that the proposed 2025 budget be forwarded to council for approval. Put on the floor, Councillor, second by the Commissioner. Pardon? I can jump in there for a while if you want my name there. Actually, I found it pretty simple, but I did want to talk to the like, did you want to just talk about it before we get into discussions, or anything you'd like to say? It's Deputy Treasurer. I'm trying to.
Yeah, my name's Carly, Deputy Treasurer. Yes. Like talk about the changes or talk about what's in the budget?
Okay, I'm concerned about the reserves. That's one of the things I'm very concerned about. Has that changed at all?
So our, let me just see here.
I've got reserves at 236,415.
Correct. So that would be, yes, that's correct. 236,415 would be the 2024 projected budget based on everything that we have in the 2024 budget being like on budget. So if anything's over budget, that would pull from reserves and vice versa. So that's kind of a floating figure, but it's based on the 2023 actual, which is in the financial statements of $1,215 in the reserves, less our budgeted transfer from in 2024 of $471,600. So yes, that is our projected balance for the end of 2024, but it is subject to change based on how LCPW performs from, now till December.
So I'm talking about all of this. What is, because I remember a discussion, this goes back a number of years ago. Zach gave us approximately 1 point something million we should have in reserves. What, do you know the number? Like, is there a percentage, or how did they come up with those numbers?
I'm not sure what the recommended percentage would be. I think it would be based on what your forecasted expenses are. If we have a capital plan with like large expenses in the future, I would recommend we transfer money into our reserves. Like right now, I would say it is in a low position. It would be nice to have more expenses, just if anything comes up that's over budget. Like perhaps next year we have a project and it's over budget and there's no decision whether or not it can proceed like it needs to proceed. That would probably come from reserves if we were on budget with every other expense item. So it's nice to have a large reserve. So I would recommend that we transfer money into the reserve because we are kind of in a lower projected position.
Right now, we're not putting anything in reserves,
Not on the budget, no.
and we haven't put anything in reserves the last couple of years, have we not? If I remember correctly, because we've been drawing, I think we had the bridges, we've had the new machine. There's been
correct. Not on the budget. So it looks like in 2023, there was a few projects that were under budget. So there was a very small transfer into reserves in 2023 of $15,000. And that would be based on the actuals being below budget, but it wasn't budgeted for.
Okay.
Also too, we were supposed to have zero reserves based on what was supposed to happen in 2024 because the bridge was to come in at 740,000. And when we put out the engagement, that was kind of the conversations that we were having had been to make sure that people knew if we did the rehabilitation at $740,000 ish, that we would completely wipe out our reserves. And then we were lucky, I hope, that the contract came in at much less, right? So that was, and that 200,000 really was, kind of, it's there only because we came in under, but now I don't know where we are because we're not at bridge updates yet. We're still in budget. So.
No, so even with that project, the way it was budgeted, we still did have some money in reserves, even though we were below budget on awarding that contract. There was still that 236,000 in reserves for any future works.
Hang on. So if we spent 740, I thought that took us to nothing.
No, we still had about 230,000.
Okay. That's where the part where I wasn't sure where.
The 234 that's there, right?
Yeah,
Correct,
because when we were having those discussions, and it's irrelevant now who said what, but back then the statement was, if we do the bridge at 740, we wipe out our reserves. So that was a concern at that time.
I think what it was if we do the bridge replacement, that would be what would wipe the reserve.
Oh, like the one,
Yeah.
like if we had done the full.
If we had done the full replacement, because that was $1 million, that would have
was
wiped it out.
Okay,
We
good.
did the
Yeah.
Full replacement.
I just want to, because I want to make sure that when people are listening, they understand how we got to the numbers we're at. So just to clarify all of it, because we did have all those conversations about what would happen with reserves on that rehab project. Okay.
So the deputy treasurer, we're still at the 3% mark on this budget too.
Yes, your revenue for the levy is still based on a 3% increase from 2023. Yes. Sorry, 2024. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'm just question too. I just wanted to ask Josh again about that 63,000 to begin with, because I've been trying to wrap my head around that one. Oh, sorry, deputy mayor or deputy treasurer. I should be asking you. Okay. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that 63,000, why it's increased so much.
Yes, I'll explain that. So I can break down by position that we have in our admin. So we went around and discussed with all our departments, and there was one change that we made, which lowers the overall wages by 3,500. So I will go ahead and state what's kind of in them now. So we have our deputy clerk. We allocate 3 days a month and 5 days in August. So it ends up being 38 days a year. So that's for our deputy clerk position. We also have our manager of business and communications. So Ashley in the back. We allocate her 2 days per month. So 24 days per year. Our director of infrastructure. So we've got Josh allocated for 2 days a month. Our manager of parks and facilities, Chris, we've got him allocated at 2 days a month. And then in bylaw, that's where we had the small change where we have now reduced wages. So I can tell you the new figure after I'm done speaking here. But we have our bylaw officer. So we have 2 officers. One is allocated at 30 minutes a week for 52 weeks of the year. So it ends up being 26 hours annually. We have our second bylaw officer allocated at 3 hours per week, which ends up being 156 hours annually. And our summer student in bylaw. So we have 2 hours per week for 15 weeks. So that ends up being 30 hours annually. So the overall cost in wages now, after we had a little change in bylaw, is $75,500 for all of the wages, CPP, EI, OMERS, EHT benefits, and WSIB. So it's $3,500 lower than what we have in our current draft budget, which has been circulated because that was updated just in advance of this morning's meeting. So in summary, that would now put us at a deficit of $17,000 as opposed to what you have in front of you stating $20,500.
So it's more than that.
So yeah, it lowered the deficit.
So that would be added on now to the.
Yes, it's added on now. I don't know if we would have to have a motion approving that.
Sorry, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Well, first I have a comment. I couldn't type fast enough.
No, we're gonna
to
get
all
that
So if you
info.
can have
I
it
can go
writing.
through it again.
Thank you. But I guess so you're talking about a reduction, but I guess I'm confused because we're talking about the in mid wages column, but it's increased to 63,000.
No, it's actually 75,000.
Yeah, so what
Sorry.
Carly's doing is the total amount, the CPP, wages, EI, OMERS, so the 65 actually got reduced. So I don't know if you want to do the same.
Oh, yes, the same comparison. So the wage column, which was previously 63,000, would now be 60,400. And then each of the other figures have also slightly decreased.
And then I guess my question is, and I know bylaw's not in the room, but we have 2 private beaches, which have private security that the residents pay for. So should be no bylaw being assigned to Parks and Waterways Commission because any work that bylaw does within Lagoon City is the same as any work they would do on any street in any area of the municipality. So why would we be paying bylaw when they don't even patrol our beaches? It's either our beach security or a call to the OPP, or there could be a call to fire, I suppose, if somebody goes out and lights a fire on the beach, which has happened on occasion. But we don't use bylaw on the private beaches. So I'm not sure why would residents be charged for bylaw? That shouldn't be allocated to us.
Okay.
Are
Sorry.
you going to answer him?
Through your chair, we can ask John Popple to join us quickly to go over what bylaw does for Lagoon City.
I think once we get that information, once we look at it, I'll probably have a couple of questions, but all in all, it sounded pretty fair. It sounded pretty thought out well. I didn't see an issue with it when I heard the days.
Yeah, no, I don't know why we
No, I
would
don't know
charge for
about bylaw. I
bylaw.
question that, but why don't we wait and see? And then we might have some more questions, right? Yeah. But all in all, I'm glad you explained that to me because I guess my big question is, how come it's increased so much though from last year and the year before?
I can't speak to exactly what was done prior to last year, but we were kind of in the process of trying to determine how much internal wages are allocated to LCPW. So I think it's just become more accurate. I wouldn't necessarily say anything has changed, but just working to actually determine what is spent in LCPW annually.
Okay. Yeah. Cause all in all, it sounds good. It sounds reasonable. I don't see an issue. I compare numbers from the year before and the year before that. When I see it increase that high, that's my first question. Why did it go that high? What's changed? But now it's making more sense, but I would love to get that information from you afterwards. I'm sure you guys would be interested to look at it.
Okay.
But
I'll
thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Thanks.
I guess your question is to the bylaw. I haven't seen you in a
Thank you.
long time. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Popple. John, how are you? I just was wondering because we only use private, we charge our Parks and Waterways Commission pays for beach security, and then our calls would go to OPP and potentially fire. I was saying in the event someone puts fire on the beach foolishly, but I don't know. And I'm not arguing. I just don't know how, like, because bylaw would be involved in parking out on the roads and things like that. So that wouldn't be assigned to the residents of Lagoon City.
No, that's correct. And good morning. And I'm good. Thank you. So it would be the specific bylaws that only apply to Lagoon City. So the canals bylaw would be one of them. The dogs on the private beach portion that will be enforced. Shore walls, we would be involved in the initial complaint processes for those. So those are specific to Lagoon City only, obviously. So that's what the allocation. So we look at past years, the number of hours that those officers would spend responding to those specific complaints. But if it doesn't include short-term rentals, because that's a township-wide enforcement issue. Parking is a township-wide enforcement issue. There's nothing specific to the commission. So it would primarily be those bylaws that have been passed specifically for Lagoon City.
That's perfect. That's all I needed to hear, just so residents know what we're talking about. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. John. I didn't have any questions. Sherry had the question.
Perfect.
Want to say hi to you.
Thank you very much then.
Yeah, we want that 30 minutes worth now. All right, so that was quite okay. So that was the first question there. Then actually, and I don't know where you guys are on it, but I'm done right to the end now. I'm okay. We already went through all this before.
The only one I have is just on the Moby mats. We had reduced it to 1 versus 2.
No, hold on a sec. That's what
That
I'm going
was-
to go to. Yeah. All right. So I just want to that's the second last page, right? So all these other pages we're okay with, right? Like I don't want to go, like we can go back, but just to go through them, I think we talked about it last time, and I've looked at it, and this is, as I said last time, it's well done. You've really targeted and aimed this, so you've done a good job, Carly, and I'm sure Josh is involved with it, and Amber, but it's well done. It's now just a matter of discussing how we're going to make sure that we put some money into our reserves.
I think
You got
just
to
the,
leave here putting money in reserves.
just the one thing, and I know we did talk about it last time, but just because we didn't, I don't know that we captured it in the committee highlights. So I want to just revisit it so that it's there publicly for people to see. The Aquarius barge expense of 45,000. Can you just speak to that again so that way Ashley can capture it in our highlights? Thank you.
Yeah, so that amount was for repairs to that machine. The conveyor belting on the equipment is in need of some replacement. The conveyors are extremely expensive, so that's why it's such an increased cost. There also is some hydraulic repairs that have to be done to the pump for machine operation itself. So
Okay, so going to this page, and this is the last page, really, second last page. It's basically what the budget is for all the items that we're looking at here. And I've gone through them and myself, and I'll just say what my feeling is on these when I went through them. I'm good with the 100,000 clean flow system, because I think that's a continuation we need to do. I'm good with the paving. I'm not sure what the 65,000 is for the gondola lagoon noise. I just wanted to find out what that is, because that's dropped a fair bit from what we originally were talking about.
yeah, so that 65,000 is basically our trial and error process to try to mitigate some of the noise from those water movers. So rather than a full replacement of the pumps or full replacement of the equipment, it's trial and error within the frame system, how it's mounted, where it's within the canal. It's just looking at different options that we can try, and if it works, we'll move it to the second one. If it doesn't, we'll go on to another option that may be available.
Did we do any work with it this year? Like, did anything happen?
So we're doing all the electrical upgrades. There was some ESA changes with working near water and electricity. So we're doing all those electrical upgrades currently. They're just waiting on some of the equipment to come in to get it installed. So it's looking like this trial and error is going to start next summer rather than this year.
So did they run it all this year in the lagoons?
No,
They
they
didn't.
haven't even been in the water this year. No.
Did you see a difference then in the clean flow system in those canals that went inwards, like the T's, I guess, or whatever we want to call them, coming in?
So the the duckweed and stuff in that area was still the same as it has been in years past. Weed growth this year in the back lagoon was better than it had been. Multiple times we were in there. First time we were in there, it was really heavy loaded with weeds and stuff. But the clean flow system is still really quite new in there to see much with the oxygenation of the water and stuff, and whether there's sediment reductions or stuff yet. I think we'll see that in the years to come. But the canal this year, weed growth wise, was in a better place than it was last year for sure.
There, you found there was more weed growth back
No,
there, or
less weed growth
less
this
weed
year
growth back there?
than years previous.
Really? Okay. So and
As
it
a
wasn't,
whole, like just like the rest.
there
of the
wasn't
canal
as many
system.
complaints then this year, was there?
That's correct.
Yeah.
The rest of the canal system as well, the weed growth condition was reduced throughout the whole entire canal system this year, for sure.
And okay, off topic, did you take out more weeds this year than you did last year, or are we?
I haven't
You haven't got that far
haven't
yet.
got those.
That'd be
tallies.
interesting, actually, next meeting, just to hear where we are with
Right.
that. Okay, sure.
No, just a quick note, just to Ashley, actually, if to please just capture that, the reason why the reduction from 170 to 65,000 on the engineering solution, just so that gets in the highlights too for distribution, please and thank you.
Also then, I'm just going through this list. I'm good with the $25,000 fencing. I'm good with the beach cleaner, kind of iffy, because depends on what else happens. Because I am looking at trying to get something put into the reserves, but the 50, I'm okay with it because we've talked about it for so long. It's coming at a good price from what we were looking at, so I think it would really help. I'm not good with the next one, the 55,000, which you probably all guys already got that feeling. I'm not good with the other 31,000. The bubble house signage, I just was trying to figure out, like, the signage, we're putting names on it for $2,000, or are we numbering them, or?
No, it was naming them in that way. If there's complaints with the system, they're identifiable to the public within the area.
So you're gonna call it like Turtle Lagoon or Turtle?
Yes, so I don't know exactly what the name will be of each bubbler, whether it's what we call it here, or if we're gonna put it out for discussion
Okay,
at a future meeting.
I'll leave that on there for now. I'm not good with the pads for the different reasons we can talk about, I'm sure. And the 8-ton, I got a bunch of questions on it. And I think you have better questions than I do on it, And that's it. And do I think that's enough money to get into reserves? I don't think so. Like, I've only pulled out, 115,000, right? So I have to go back to you then and say, okay, how would that make a difference in our reserves then? Because I know it's a little bit higher. I don't think it's going to take me right up where I want to be.
Okay, so I just want to confirm which ones we wanted to remove. So you were looking at,
Well, hang on, we haven't discussed it yet, so
Okay.
I
But I
don't know
just
that,
wanted my numbers. So
no, but I don't know that I'm agreeing to remove those things.
no, I know, but I'm just
Okay.
trying to figure, I'm trying to get reserves. That's what I'm after right now. I'd love to put everything in here, but I need the reserves higher. And I don't want to increase the percentage. I want to sit on the 3% because I think the cost of living is less than 3%, is it not?
it might be like slightly less than 3%. It's all projected, but I think it might be like in the 2.7%. I don't think 3% is far off.
No, but it's not like if I increase it more by 1%, then you know what I mean, we're up to 4, so we're getting higher. But anyways, that number that I'm looking at was just those numbers, and I don't know if it's enough. I may have to look at more when I look at it again. May have to look at the beach cleaner too.
Okay, but just for your own information, you wanted me to sum up what removing
55,000, 31,000, 30,000.
30,000. Okay, so the two LSRCA and the Moby pads would be 116,000. So that would put you at a surplus of $99,000. Just for your information.
So,
And I will,
so that's now paid off some of that we've already gone over. So it would be 99,000. So it'd be approximately 336 then in our reserves. And yeah.
correct. Yes. Yeah. Because if we budgeted that as a transfer into our reserves, correct. Yeah.
So we are over about 25,000 already. Okay. Okay, that's what my feeling is. So now go ahead, Sherry.
Thank you. So, the 100,000 on the clean flow system, I think is just a given. We have to continue our expansion on that. So I
Absolutely.
agree.
If
We
anything,
leave-
it should be higher.
Yeah, we leave that there. The fixing up of the footpath, we know that has to be done. The 65, we know we have to do that. The fencing, again, we should be doing that. So I know though there's going to be some challenges even getting it done this, so we'll see how that goes. But the 55 that was sent to council for discussion. So definitely that one comes out. The 31 is the wrong number.
Well, that's
because-
Sherry. Please go back. What about the beach clean?
Oh, sorry, I skipped over it.
Yeah.
I am still, I'm still undecided on the beach cleaner only because we haven't determined yet who's going to operate it and how that's going to look. So I wonder if it is, we've got the goose management system in place, which is working, and we are doing the drag. And I know that people have asked over time for a beach cleaner, but I feel like I think that we don't know enough right now about how that process would work. And really, if we're going to get a bang for the buck out of it at $50,000, and then how that, I just don't know if that's our best. If we're going to do some kind of you call it luxury item, if you will, this year, I don't know if that's the best choice. So for me, I would take it out for this year. Yeah, that's where I'm at on that one. Obviously, so the characterization project moved as a council discussion. The chlorine case study, we can revisit, but it's not 31. That was the wrong number that got put in because we didn't have it on the first go. So I believe it's 2021. If we scroll back up and look at that guy. So that's just a change in that item. I do like the identification signage. I think it's important for the internal and external pieces. And this one actually might be a fun one to do with our engagement next year, where we do a community engagement on Name the Houses, because that might be kind of in line with our Name the Harvester. So that could be a fun one. Then the Moby pads, that should have been reduced down by half anyway, because we were only talking South Beach, not both beaches, because South Beach has accessible parking. And I do want to, my feeling is that we leave that in there. And part of the reason is that it does achieve more than just accessibility. It's accessibility, but it also allows folks who have children and they're bringing their wagons down to the beach and baby strollers and all those kinds of things. It just creates a walking path down to the beach. So it becomes useful, even if you're not using a device, even if it's just that you have sprained your ankle. Like I'm not saying that we're going to do it. I want to leave space for community engagement so that we have the opportunity to do it if the residents want to have it. My anecdotal conversation tells me residents would like to have the ability to have better access to the beach. So I would like to be able to do the engagement on that. And we can leave it in reserves and pull it out mid-year if you want to do that approach instead. But from my perspective, I would like to leave half in there so that we have the opportunity to find out if residents would like to see us bring some value this year outside of sort of the regular management pieces. And then the big one is the 8-ton excavator, which I know has been a conversation for a couple of years. But when I look at it, I say to myself, right, but Parks and Waterways could only use it for those 3.5 to 4 months-ish. And I would be willing to leave a third in there, but I don't want to leave 185 in our budget because it would be being used 8 months of the year by the township. So therefore, I think the expenditure belongs in the township's budget, their portion. So we would put it in at a third of that. And then if the township doesn't go for it, then maybe we look at, going down to the auction and picking one up for ourselves, at auction. And then it's not for use by the township, it's just for use by us. But at the 185, I wouldn't like to see it in our budget. I would just like to see a third.
Josh, can you respond to that? Like, I thought last time when we talked about it, that what we cost to rent it and so on and so forth, it was a payback in a couple of years. And if the town doesn't get involved in it, right, and they want a part of it, then they're not going to use it, correct?
Yeah, so like I recommended I could put 50% of it in my infrastructure budget and then split it 50-50. But again, that's dependent on council approving it in the infrastructure budget, which isn't in our capital plan. It'd be a new addition. As far as the equipment rental, we're 3,600 a month for the rental down there. So you're 12,000 a year for that equipment rental.
So it costs us $12,000 a year.
I believe off the top of my head, that's the
Okay.
number I'm thinking. So payback would be on the full price, you'd be what, 13, 14 years payback for rental to purchase a machine. There is a benefit to this sort of machine within the township as well. We could use it on smaller ditching projects, some of the swale work within Lagoon City, swale work outside of Lagoon City. There would be a benefit, but again, it's not something that's in my capital plan currently. There is a benefit to it though, so.
It's like, as the counselor said, compared to the amount of time they're going to use it vis-a-vis what we're going to use it, the percentages aren't right at 50-50.
No, but even the time that you guys are going to use it would be the same time that I would typically use it. So.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You would like it would sit pretty well idle through the winter?
Yeah, for the most part, the machine would be sitting, doing nothing in the winter. We could use it for if we have emergency repairs or anything like that, but the prime time for this equipment is the same time that you guys use it.
So then how could you share it then? Because we need it to push everything down. How
Yeah,
could we-
so what we would do if we were to share it in that case, we have a backhoe. When I may need the excavator, we'd put our backhoe in place. And then when we don't need the excavator or when we don't need the backhoe, the excavator would be down in the Lagoon City.
And that's why you're saying 50% that 50-50.
Yes.
Huh, this is actually, I don't know, it makes it more, it's only 12 grand a year. That's probably what the other parks of waterways looked at all the time, right?
Well,
It's
I
such
guess-
a large expense.
I think if it had been purchased at the time that we started harvesting, like then it might have made sense, you know what I mean? But
We
now
didn't
we're,
even come close to that
so-
money.
Yeah.
no, I know.
Right.
So it's like, it's hard to, and I get it because you don't want to be spending $3,600 a year in perpetuity, right? But I wonder,
Well,
like,
it's 12,000 a year.
or sorry, yeah, per month I
Right.
meant. So what about auction though? Like, I know that.
An
I'm
auction
very-
would be an option. To get a good used machine, you're still probably looking about $100,000. In the past, we've always talked about getting a backhoe for Lagoon City. But from an infrastructure standpoint, I don't need a second backhoe to use the rest of the year. An excavator, it's multi-purpose. It could be utilized outside of when it's not needed down Lagoon City, and when it is still regarding Lagoon City, I could put our backhoe there in place. So that there would always be a machine down there. I'm not saying the backhoe or the excavator would never be down there. It would be down there primarily, and then when a job comes up that we could utilize it in infrastructure, we'd put the backhoe down there for that time.
I don't know, what's the difference between that and a backhoe? I have no idea.
A backhoe basically it has a front bucket and a rear bucket and has tires on it. And an excavator is a track machine that just has a bucket on it.
Because that's all we need, something just sit there to push it and move it.
Yeah, you just need something that has essentially an arm on it that can reach in the bin, grab the weeds, move it to then move the weeds.
Right,
with
because
it.
it goes at one end, you have to pull it. And that works well then, because you give it the load.
Yeah.
And you squeeze the water.
Correct, yes.
Huh.
So can we put half in our budget then?
Did you want to speak on?
So assuming 12,000 a year for rental, if we put half in, that would bring us down to just over 90,000. So our return on investment would be about a 6-year return on investment. Is that about right?
Pretty close. I figured 5 years.
So 5,
Well, if they bought it for, say, use them for 100, the
Yeah.
town split 50-50,
Then-
they took 50, it'd be 50,000.
so do we possibly move that 180 down to 100 for the machine and then cut that in half and make it
But we don't even
50,000?
know if the town wants to be involved in, because they have to allocate on the budget.
Right, yeah. It's just I mean, 185,000, that a 13-year payback is just a return on investment for 13 years, just not sensible at all. 5 years return on investment, you can justify that, but 13.
Well, I would have to imagine too, Josh, just sorry to interrupt you. You would have to look in maintenance and repairs. So if it's
That's
that
what I
old,
was
you're
gonna
gonna-
bring up. So the next thing is maintenance for that machine. You're always gonna be budgeting some money for maintenance where when you're renting, if it breaks down, we make a phone call and we either get a new machine or they come fix it. So
But you've got like, probably they give us an older machine, probably it's like, you know, and they just look after it.
to get the machine that's there with the backhoe, we specify backhoe because they're typically a little bit cheaper to rent. To specify backhoe with the thumb, which is what we're able to grab the weeds with and move them around, it's getting a lot more difficult because the rental companies don't typically stock a machine with a thumb. They just stock one without. So that's why in the past we've had an excavator there, we've had the backhoe there. So there's always availability for equipment. It may vary between excavator and backhoe depending on which company we go with each year.
And what was your recommendation? What would you do?
Because we always looked at a backhoe in the past, my recommendation was not to move forward with it because we couldn't justify a second one within the township. If we were to go an excavator, it is multi-purpose. We could use it in other duties outside of Lagoon City within the township. It's just whether or not council will agree that there's the benefit for the cost at this point in time.
So really, we could build in, I don't know, is the township more to buy new things or used things?
We typically buy new, just you get the warranty and you get reduced maintenance and yeah.
And you expect to use this machine for the next 20 years?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yes.
It's a long term.
Yeah,
But
and
this is the time.
like, I'm okay if we put half in, or I guess there's two approaches. Either we put like 92.5 in ours, or we leave the money in reserves and let Josh
Well,
put it in the council one, and then we pull it out. of
if we
reserves
split it with them
after.
at 185, that's only 90,000. Yeah, it does.
But I just don't want 185 in our budget, right?
No, and if they don't go for it, then we just throw it back in reserves.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, so I would take this down and say, okay, we'll split it 50-50, put in the 90,000 and then, or whatever it is, 95, and away we go on that. Right? And if council doesn't want to do it, then because then the payback on it is still a little better, right? Like it's what, 9 years,
And the average
No, sorry,
lifespan
8
on them
years.
is like
8
25.
8 years for 90.
If you go with our asset management
figuring-
plan,
I was figuring
you're
50 per
14 to
100.
20 years.
All right, so we willing to do that then? We'll do that, and if town doesn't want it, we'll just put it back in reserves, which will be great. It'll help out. I wouldn't plan it. I think the town will go for it, because it seems like a good deal to me if they need it. All right, so what would we make that number then? 90,000 now?
92.5.
95? Okay, so that means we've just moved another 90,000 to reserves.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now, when you go back to the those pads, right? We're not doing anything with it. Why do we need to keep it in our budget? Why don't we do an engagement, find out what's going on, and if we want it, we'll go back into reserves.
I'm okay with doing that either way. I just don't want it to disappear off
Yeah,
the
I have
table.
no problems. I want to
Yeah.
take it. I like to take it out of there.
But it's also
and
not
I agree
30,000.
with the engagement.
Yeah.
So let's put in, what would engagement cost us? $500, $1,000 or something?
I think we already have the engagement in, don't we?
Only for the pavilion.
What, sorry?
We have the engagement for the pavilion.
So
Yeah,
why
but
don't
it was one document we had said, so it
Well-
would just be like one survey that we put out.
so we shouldn't add any money into that for the engagement.
Because we're doing mail out, right?
Yeah, so it could be a two-sided mail out. And then,
So let's just put it $500 then.
I think we did. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. If
We
we've
on the
already done
last
it, then that's
discussion,
fine.
we added in a mail out, I thought. Yeah. But
So that-
it wouldn't be 30 anyway, right? Like, just keep in mind, we're not talking 30,000 because
Well,
it's half of that.
I think when we do an engagement, we have to really take a good hard look at how far the pads are going. Are we going to run it down to the water? If we run it down to the water and a person that has a wheelchair needs to use the bathroom, we got to run the pads to the bathroom, right? We have to, if we're doing something like that, we have to look at, okay, we have to run pads to picnic tables and things. We have to look at our picnic tables that are, they're accessible.
Sorry,
right?
Cal, that's not normally how they go. Like, if you go to any of the sites where they have the Moby mats, they just have an access down to the water from your
No, but I'm
pathway.
pretty sure that's what we have to do. If you take a look, you probably should go, I think, to the accessibility, like that, there's a group here. And I'm pretty sure find out all of that information.
No, we can, but I'm just saying
Because
when
that's what
I've done,
That's what I'm getting. That's where I'm
Right.
getting a lot of it from people out there.
but when
So-
I've just done the research, there, it's just
Well,
a
let's do
path
the
that takes you
engagement,
down to
find
the
out.
water.
Let's
Yeah,
find
no,
out.
I'm agreeing, but we need to do a whole robust package. It's like
Right.
the engagement is one piece, but then,
But we've
I-
taken
at
the
this
money out
point-
right now. So when we do the
right, but also
engagement,
too, it wouldn't be, I'm just saying like, we're not talking both beaches. Just keep that in mind. We wouldn't
no,
be
but we've
doing
got
both.
$30,000 going back to our reserves. That's what I'm after. Right
Yeah.
now. Okay. And then the engagement goes, and then the way I like it is the fact we'll do the engagement. That'll take a while. We'll take a look at what our reserves are at that time, and we either do it then or we might wait another 6 months. Right?
Well, and also we were looking for a corporate partner who's already offered.
Bingo.
So it's,
This is easy. Let's just take the 30,000 out. So add another 30,000 to our reserves, because we got to get our reserves up. That's what we're working on right now.
and then I guess speaking of reserves, since we're gone back that way, I think that we did ask, you're right, in this conversation way back, we had asked Zach at that time, how did he determine how much you need in reserves? And he was actually working on that, but that was, and now he's not here. So I think
We were given the number a long time. I remember the
and
number.
I know,
It's like,
and there was a
holy
whole,
jump.
and then we had said, how do you determine it? But we never really did get that answer. So you did answer it just a little bit this morning, but I wonder if we could, if we're going to talk about, you know, like what is this ideal reserve number? It would actually be helpful to do what you've said, which is when might we need an equipment purchase? What might that equipment purchase, like, you know, or whether it's clean flow or whatever it is. But I think it would probably be a good idea as part of this. I know we have to make a decision on our budget today, but on a go forward, if we did have a better understanding of what's the ideal reserve, and if that's based on asset management aspects, that it should maybe come from infrastructure too, so that we know what we're trying to achieve, because it seems hard to achieve a number that you don't know what it is you're trying to achieve.
I think it's there, because do we not do it with the depreciation? We did it with the vehicles, that we figured out we had to put so much money per year aside for the vehicles, for all the different equipment that eventually wears out. Isn't there something out there?
We do for infrastructure, but not for the commission, because it's.
But I know Zach was talking all about that. I remember when we sat there and he talked about that's what we're about to do. And he was looking at the like that, I guess, right? So I
Yeah.
guess we didn't include it in that.
And no, because it's, depending how you look at it, separated.
Okay, because I can remember Zach sitting there talking about it. I remember that meeting, and it was like, oh, finally, because we've never done it before.
Yes, I think what we're saying is we haven't done it, so we would need to have an asset management plan for our assets that are assigned to Parks and Waterways. Otherwise,
'Cause
it
we're
is
getting
hard to figure out how much reserves do you need if we don't know what we need, right? So I think we,
Well, we have a lot of assets now. One time we didn't have assets. Yeah, we had what? The truck and the whatever,
So with that, we might have to look at staff time for asset management as well now.
what, sorry, Zach, I couldn't hear you.
For that, we might have to look at staff time for asset management. To have that completed,
To complete it.
to complete the asset management life cycle.
All right, so you're saying we should put something in the budget for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have no idea.
I have no idea off the top of my head how to calculate it either.
I'd just be taking a number out of the sky there.
That's all I'd be doing at the same point, so.
Do you have any idea or?
Well, that would likely be mine and Manoa's time. So it would be us developing some sort of capital plan, most likely a 10-year capital forecast, which we would then be able to see what we need to pull from reserves each year. So right now, if we did one, it would be for 10-year capital from 2025 to 2035. We would see each year what we're expected to purchase and what that amount would likely pull from reserves, assuming that our kind of day-to-day.
Do me a favor and just check. I'm positive Zach did this. I'm positive I've seen this. No, this goes back a number of years. I remember him sitting there talking to us about it. This before your time, Sherry. But I could have swore he had, I remember looking at
I know, but I asked him for that and he did not have it. So
Oh,
I would say that he therefore did not do
it.
that.
If you wouldn't mind just looking though, I could have swore.
I'll discuss with Mano, and we can get back to you with what we think we could likely do to get you what you're looking for. It's unlikely that we would be able to get that provided to you in the next month with the budget that we have.
No, it's
slated
fine.
for council?
I don't think we're expecting next month.
No.
But
not
are
for
you
this
talking
budget. We
about
realize
next
that.
year?
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
next year. But
Okay,
even
I'll
in the winter, if we got into it, right?
I'll discuss with Mano because it sounds like right now we're wanting to put any surplus into reserves. So I can leave a note that Mano and I can discuss what our staff time might look like, and we can come up with a figure, and that would take away from the reserve contribution. It wouldn't be a significant
Well,
figure,
it'd
but
make our lives a lot easier because we know exactly what we're trying to get into reserves to hold. And to get a rough idea of what our reserves should be, right? Right, what we're shooting for, right?
yes. So I think that would come from our 10-year capital forecast.
Oh, no, I think it's a great idea to do it. It's every time we do something like this, it makes it easier.
Well, it just takes us to where we should be. And we've been, I think, in the last few years, we've said this before, but we have changed the face of Parks and Waterways substantially. And we do have all of these pieces in place that should be there. So I think this is just a natural step.
Okay, so we've pretty well gone through everything and agreed on everything except one last thing is the chlorine. Right? That's the last one.
Yeah, and I'm not saying necessarily that we do it today, but I am also saying that I don't want it to disappear. I don't want it to be something that was brought for discussion and then it gets shelved somewhere and then collects dust for a decade, because those changes are coming and being worked on at the provincial level and through conservation. And I think I know Don didn't speak overall to the issue of sodium chloride, but basically from the conservation perspective right now, sodium chloride today is what phosphorus was 20 years ago. And the danger that we're starting to see in the Great Lakes is mass amounts of sodium chloride are having a negative impact. And we know that we have created a situation with a number of condos along those canals in tight proximity. And we know that there's a lot of sodium chloride going into the waterways right there. So as Don said, this is all early. And so this might be a next bigger step. But what I wouldn't want to do is say, we know that there's a chloride issue and we're just going to shelve it, because I think that would be irresponsible on our part when we're charged with management of the waterways. So I think that if you don't want to invest the 20,000 this year, the minimum that we might be able to do is get a hold of some of those case studies that conservation has and do some education pieces. But I would not recommend putting this away and making it just disappear, because it is an important piece of management of the waterways. And again, it's specific to Lagoon City. So I wouldn't be able to recommend, oh, let's, send this over to council. From my perspective, the $20,000, I would spend it because I think that it's our job to make sure the waterways are cared for, and that does include their protection. But I also know that I know you're not in support of it, Cal, so I'm not going to fight it to the death, but I'm also not going to say that I'll put it away forever. Maybe we put it away for 25, but it comes back in 26 and we use 25 to educate.
I'd like to see it taken off of there, but I think what you were just saying there, I think the solution is coming on its own, because as you said, this is a big deal that's happening out there. It's just a matter of time before they go after these townhouses and they go after these people. And this is all going to happen without us getting involved in it. And that one day they're going to be told by the provincial government, not that I'm putting you you're the
Condo
town,
owner.
but
Yeah.
eventually I think the provincial government's going to say, you cannot put this amount in, you've got to do this. And the other good thing for us is the fact the town doesn't lace our roads with salt. So we don't even have to worry about that. So if anything, we're one of the municipalities or Lagoon City, we're in a good spot right now. If all we have are the townhouses, which eventually I think will be looked after.
Yeah, and I guess the when this started was that a condo has killed off all its vegetation with use of sodium. So we are overusing it.
It's something should have happened then to them,
Yeah,
right? The provincial government should have got involved then.
But the thing is that
Okay, so we're going to take this off, Sherry. So how do you want to leave it so that?
Well, that's what I'm
follow
trying
up
to
on it
say.
later?
Yeah, so I don't want to take it off and make it disappear. So I think that one of the things we need to do is tap into the education that's available about use of sodium chloride, so that maybe it helps mitigate what the condos are doing, because I understand that the contractors are over salting, but that doesn't mean that the condominiums can't make a better choice. So I think education is the first piece. And then second to that, in addition to that, I also still want to make sure that we're watching for any grant opportunities that are out there to do this kind of research, because initially there was conversation about potential for money to be available in funding. So I guess I would still want the recommendation to include that we seek, or at least, continue to look for the opportunities for funding. I mean, maybe you're not going to seek it, but at least be watching for it, because when it's out there, you'd want to take advantage of it.
Who watches for funding for the municipality now?
Ashley, I think.
Oh, she carries us that. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
So from what I'm determining, your number, what number do you think should go in there for this?
Well, the education that's out there is already available through conservation, so it's going to be staff time more than anything else, and then updates to our website, which we don't necessarily have to tax any staff member with that. We can go to we can help as a commission to go seek where the research information is already located, and then it's just a question of adding it to the website. So there would be staff time on Ashley's part, probably, or somebody's part, to update the website, our pages with information.
So you're looking at 5,000,
$500.
Well, it's just the same, it's staff time, right? So
couple $1,000.
I don't know, because I don't know what we would find yet.
Miscellaneous, I wouldn't even worry about it
Right.
because
Yeah.
Because we
really,
have
all
staff
she's
time
wanted, all she
allocated.
wants to do is make that statement that we don't let it dust. It comes up for discussion again.
Understand. So
And it's, if you guys, like really at the townhouses, if they put a law in play, what it sure sounds like that they're gonna do it with salt, then it sort of takes us out of that because that's what really is our main concern.
Yeah, but
Right.
again, this was, because this is so new, that the notion was there could be funding available. So I definitely wouldn't want.
Well, I don't know. I
would
have
wanna
to
always
assume
be
Ashley's
watching.
always looking for funding.
Yeah,
right?
but this would be specific sodium chloride funding. So if she didn't know, then she wouldn't have been
So
looking for it.
that will be part of the motion, then, funding. Look for funding. I think you should always look for funding on anything everywhere. Yes.
so I support the 50,000 removal for the beach cleaner. I support the
Well, let's go
55.
back and just see, before we take the beach cleaner out, right? We've worked our way back.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at it.
I'm
wanna
still
discuss
out on the beach cleaner.
I know you are about it, but let's get this added in now, back to where our reserves are now. Because we've just now added another, what was that, 31,000?
Okay, so you kind of want to talk about what we removed and where our surplus would put us at right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I might have missed some conversation, but I just kind of want to summarize what I've removed. So I'll start with the capital and work down. So $100,000 bubbler expansion is still there. 25,000 North Footbridge is still there. 65,000 gondola noise is still there. Footbridge fencing for 25,000 is still there. We've got a question mark on the beach cleaner for 50,000, but it's still there.
It's just leave the 50 for now. We'll
Okay.
come back to it.
We've removed the LSRCA characterization of environmental conditions of the canal. We've removed that 55,000. It's sent to council. Was that correct? I wasn't sure what
We've
the.
moved to 55,000.
Okay. The chlorine case study, I've updated based on the quote figure to $21,000. It's still sitting in there, or
No,
we
it's
want it
gone.
out? Gone? Okay. So the chlorine case study for 31,000 is removed. Okay. We still have the bubbler house identification signs in there for 2,000. Moby pads has been removed for $30,000 in capital. We've added $500 in our advertising and promotion for engagement.
Sure.
And we have reduced the 8-ton excavator to a half, which has put it in there for 92,500. Overall, that puts us at a surplus of $191,000, which we could transfer to our reserves, which would put, let me just put that into reserves, 191,000, just to sit there. Which would put us at a projected 2025 reserve balance of $427,000. That does not include yet the additional staff wages for finance to do the 10-year capital. It would not be a significant figure, but I can add that and play with the surplus figure to just reduce that transfer to the reserves a little.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, so then it's just the beach cleaner, which I think we're in agreement that we remove, so that we'd add another 50,000.
Well, to me now, the number that would, then we took the 50 out, that would put us to 470. That's pretty good, actually, where we're, oh, sorry.
So the only thing that not in here, this year we pulled out that beach party. So that hasn't been put back in, if you guys want to do that again next year. And then any beautification projects, they're not in here either.
I guess we'd have to ask
So,
Right, I don't know.
well, the beautification, we had said we were going to do annually when we carried that motion. So that would be putting, I think it's 10,000 per annum.
I think it's in
So-
here already. I saw it already. so-
Yeah, and I thought that was already in. That's because
Yeah.
we had said it was per annum, but if it's not, then we would need to
No,
put
I'm
that
pretty
in.
sure I saw something about that.
And the beach party, I think we should do, and I think that we need to budget a touch more just because I think we had to rent the tent was the problem. We clearly figured out that we can't build a pavilion anytime soon, so it would require, but one of the things I've heard resoundingly around the community is how absolutely heartbroken people were that we didn't get to proceed to have an annual event.
It was well done. It's
Yeah.
really disappointing to them.
So, and I think, I believe we had budgeted 2,500 last year, so maybe we just need to give ourselves a bit of room to get one of those tents in.
Well, that money's going back in again, right? So we'll just hold on to it. Right? Didn't you just say, it goes back in? Okay.
We did have to pay some of that for the band cancellation and for the porta potty. So
Yeah,
there was
and
some
even though,
expenses.
even though you wanted to carry, you have to rebudget it for the
Oh.
next year.
So that's rebudgeted then.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would support, 3,500.
Like 35 instead of 25. It's just so
Yeah,
there was
that's what I
room.
was-
Yeah, I put it.
For- So so it would be 35 and then 10 for our beautification needs to stay in there. And then we took the 50 out for the beach cleaner. So we're,
It's something we should look at again though next year. I think it would be.
Yeah,
a good
I
asset.
agree.
Really
I
do.
yeah, I do. Yeah. But I think the
At
thing,
least we'll look better next year with this.
Well, right.
And we'll get the breakdown from the deputy treasurer too.
that's what I was going to say, Cal, once we have a better idea of what it is
We'll
we're
know what
trying
we
to
have-
achieve,
we
then
have
we
to know
can
what
get
we
a
can
better
spend,
sense.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But you know what? This is way better. Years and years ago. Sorry, Chris.
Hey, sorry, guys, I just went through line by line. There's no line in there right now currently for beautification. So that'll have
No?
to be in addition to what's sitting there now. There's no line for beautification.
Yeah, I wondered if it was in there. So that was because the motion we carried was at 10,000 a year. And then you would help us choose which project, infrastructure would help us choose which project. to
That's,
fund it.
that's
Discussion.
correct.
Yeah.
And it's currently not sitting there. So.
Okay.
Alright.
So we're basically taking 50 out, but then putting 10 plus and putting 13.5 back in.
We're putting 13.5 back in. That was $10,000 for beautification and $3,500 for
That beach party.
beach party.
Yeah.
13.5. Okay.
Where did I see that then? You're right. I don't find it. And we're not worrying about the artwork, so yeah, okay. But all these things should be saved for next year so that we know what we were talking about, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because the artwork we were going to talk about, that's all part of the engagement.
You know what?
piece.
I was looking,
So-
it didn't look that bad. Like at least the bridges that I go under, going back to my place. I was checking them out. It didn't look as bad as what I thought they were.
I think it's more, I think the ones that are the most faded are on the two, like the footbridges, not necessarily the road bridges,
it?
which I don't know why that is, but it seemingly but I think that's whole part and parcel of doing the engagement. So yeah, I think we leave the line there just because we know it.
Okay, so I think we're at the end here now. This is well done. All right, so is there any more discussion or? Have you got all your information, Deputy Treasurer?
Yes, I believe I have all the information. I'm just wondering if we have to pass like a motion that has everything stated in it or how we like finish up.
Through your chair, yes. So I have been writing down the amendments. So right now, the proposed 2025 budget be received and that LCPW requests the following amendments to the draft budget. LCPW admin wages be reduced by 3,500. Beach cleaner be removed. LSRCA characterization of the environmental conditions of the canal be removed. LSRCA chlorine study be removed. The 8-ton excavator be reduced to $92,500. $500 be added for advertising. The Moby pads be removed. Add 3,500 for the beach party and add $10,000 for beautification. And that the proposed 2025 budget be forwarded to council for approval.
Sorry, just one question. The advertising and printing, we already had added, I thought, and that's why it's at $2,000 currently. So do we need more than $2,000 to do 2 mail outs? Like, do we need $500 is I guess what I'm saying, because I thought we already added them.
No, we can have it on, like we were discussing, we can have one flyer for each, the weed spraying and then 4 other surveys.
I know, but the 2,000, we already have $2,000 in advertising and printing. So I'm trying to understand
Yep.
So you
I
need
can
to make it
remove that.
2,500 is what you're saying?
I don't believe we need to. I just had noticed that Carly had added it, so I can remove it as long as Carly is.
It is at 2,500 now, so that we added $500 for the MobiPad engagement. If you think you can work within the $2,000 budget for adding the MobiPad engagement without changing the dollar figure, that $500 was only added for the extra engagement discussed.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm not grasping what you're saying. We have administration budget of $2,000 is what I'm looking at. And that $2,000 already reflected putting out engagement because we added engagement at the last meeting.
We added engagement of $1,000 at the last meeting for Pavilion. Could it be done in like the
Yeah,
same
that's what I'm saying.
format?
It's just one piece of community engagement goes out and it'll be inclusive, like a 2-sided thing that has all of our different things that we want to start learning about.
I see. Sorry, I
yeah.
misunderstood. You wanted
Okay.
to add the MobiPads to the already existing engagement. There's
Yeah,
no
it's just
dollar.
It's just going to be,
gotcha.
we can just say one piece of community engagement to gauge interest in, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. So that's why I just want to make sure we don't want to add it just for no reason. Yeah.
So we're gonna stay at 2,000 for the.
I have removed the 500 from the motion.
I just had the one question, on the 8-ton. And we've got it at 90, whatever thousand. That's if council agrees to split it with us. Okay. What happens if council refuses to split? Would we go back to plan B where Josh said it'd be about 100,000 for a used one?
Or you just rent one for 2025 and we discuss it for 26.
Yes, we could do that.
Yeah. Cause I'm thinking too, once you have a 10-year, like a capital plan in place, that
Yeah.
might impact on.
Okay, but if they go half, so we won't worry about it then. We'll just rent it then if they don't. And that way then make your life easier than trying to, but have your eyes peeled if you do see something like that, because obviously we are interested in it, right? Yeah. And I guess they sell fast, right? Yeah. All right, so with what Amber just said, that's what we've changed our, whatever, I guess the recommendations. So are we in favor of that then? Because we're not good.
I think so. Yeah. Do you want to read it one more time?
I
for us
can't
to make
believe
sure
we're
that we're
One more comment. Is there a way to add a memo for staff wages for the 10-year capital without a figure? And that be reflected in the final transfer to reserves? I'm not sure what we want to say there. If we for sure want a 10-year capital in 2025.
Well, we want to see what, like, we're asking you to do that, right? Is what
Yes.
you're doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want us to put that motion?
Yes, I believe so.
well, or do you have is there a I mean,
I'm
is it-
not sure what Zach, like based on what you've commented on about there be like pre-existing work, I'm not sure what we've done to date, like how much we might need to do. Because we would need to discuss with yourselves and I'm
Well,
not.
so should we put in a budget? Is what you're asking, roughly some money? I don't know.
that's
Oh,
what I'm
no,
wondering.
it would just be like a small figure in the salaries and wages area.
Okay.
So it would just be like an allocation for myself and Mano, maybe like 5 days in the year, maybe like between attending a meeting
Oh,
for
I
it.
see.
I'm not sure exactly what it would entail, but it would just be like a small change in the wages for admin LCPW wages. I just didn't want to have anything that gets approved here would be what's presented to council.
Right.
So if there was a change in the wage figure, I'm not sure if we need to have another meeting, but
We could just actually go in one of our meetings is amend it and say that we're taking money. from
Oh, okay.
reserves to do that.
Oh,
That's what I was
And
gonna say,
then,
pull from
and then
reserve.
council has to okay it apparently, and then away we go. And they've never refused Parks and Waterways anything. We have to
Okay.
make an amendment like that. We've never had an issue.
Okay.
I think we've done it once or twice a year. I don't think we did it this year though.
great. That answers my question.
Yeah.
So we don't need to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier.
Sorry,
Okay.
through your chair, if you are wanting the treasurer and deputy treasurer to look into any of this, perhaps you would like to add to the motion that staff report follow up with respect to this matter.
I think so. Okay, then, well, let's put that in too then.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not gonna make you read all the other things, just we'll add that. Well, I wouldn't mind seeing the budget, like just to make sure that like before it goes to council, to make sure it's exactly what we talked about, right? Like, just-
But you're trying to send it to council today? Send it on to, is this our final? Yeah. So
Oh, you're
that-
trying to send it to.
Yeah,
Dave.
so we have to finish. So
Okay.
because
Well,
the
if
other,
there's anything wrong with it, then when it goes to council, we can point it out that we need to amend this and that. We'll amend it later. Council's not gonna get theirs done that fast, are they? Have they even started yet?
no,
No, they haven't started.
Our budget meeting will be a month from today, October 24th. So then we want our agendas prepared, like we're collecting all of our internal and departmental
Right.
and
So we
committee.
do have an opportunity to take a look at it, do we not? Like,
Oh, yes, you can take a look at it. But between now and then, there won't be an opportunity to change the figures being presented to council.
right, but if the figures are incorrect of what we've talked about here, we can change it. If we see it's wrong, right?
It'll be difficult, likely not. It'll be difficult to have it changed before it's presented to council. To have a meeting,
Okay.
yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, so if-
By 10 grand, I'm okay with that. That's fine.
I think
Even if we're 15,000.
I think we're close enough.
We'll deal with that then.
yeah, I wasn't worried about the number so much, but I do think it's just once because we keep going around in circles and talking. So I think Amber should read us the motion and we should carry it full and intact because
So you want to hear
there's
it
two.
again?
Yeah, so the staff
Okay, so I
report
just
is
wanna-
one.
When she sees the number. it says
Right, so
number,
because the
just
staff
change it.
report was one thing, and then the other thing was a memo or a report, I guess it would be a second staff report that talks to us about all of that breakdown that you gave us on wages, so that we also have that.
Right, I want to make sure I
So-
hear what was taken off.
Yeah, so so the motion should have two staff reports plus what was,
All right.
yeah.
Okay, Amber. And take your time. We're not in a hurry. No
I know,
hurry.
it's no pressure.
Yeah, if you want to, you know what? Let's take a break right now and get it together properly, right? Are you okay with that? Take a break? All right. So Ashley, we're gonna take a break?
So the motion,
Hold on a sec.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we're back.
Okay, so the motion on the table is that the proposed 2025 LCPW budget be received and that the LCPW request for the following amendments to the budget are LCPW admin wages be reduced by 3,500. The beach cleaner be removed. LSRCA characterization of the environmental conditions of the canal be removed. LSRCA chlorine case study be removed. The 8-ton excavator be reduced to $92,500. Moby pads be removed. Add $3,500 for the beach party. Add $10,000 for beautification. And that the proposed 2025 budget be forwarded to council for approval. And that we request staff report with, or that we request a staff report with respect to staff time required for the 10-year capital asset forecast. And that we request a staff report with respect to the breakdown of the LCPW admin wages. And that the surplus from the draft 2025 budget be added to reserves.
Well, that hit it for me. Yeah, I heard everything. That's perfect. Thank you. Good work. So all in favor? Okay, that's passed. Moving on. We're coming to the adjournment. I don't need to talk then about that meeting. I can talk about that next time, or do we need to deal with that meeting now?
I think that there's a couple of things just because we're in a meeting that I'd like to do too, just to get a couple of inquiries
I
toward
don't know if we
infrastructure.
can go and do any new business, can we?
Typically during a special meeting,
Yeah.
we advertise for a specific matter. And because it is a public meeting, but because it's not your monthly meeting, it's just the matter that we're discussing that I've put out notice for that we.
The only thing though, can we confirm our next meeting and talk about it, right? The date. Because we're kind of in a limbo on our next meeting, right? Like,
Right, yeah, we can discuss it.
right. Because right now I'm stuck. I'm stuck on the Thursday now, like with all that.
Yeah, I think that's what we came to anyway. that it
Oh,
was
so it's just
we're
gonna be a
staying the
regular
same
meeting. So then let's talk about what we've talked about in the next meeting.
at the next
In
meeting.
new
But I did, am I allowed to just say that there's like a safety issue happening, even though that we're in a, or just to, like, or do we just, I can't say anything.
You should probably
It's
talk.
just an announcement and it's just important that if I can, because I have seen some people trying to take the fence down on the North Footbridge on the old Indian side of the footpath to climb over it. And so just for public safety, I just want to reiterate that the bridge is closed for a reason. And so when these highlights come out, then that way Ashley can just add a note in there to, just respect the closure, please. I'm just saying it because I don't want to see anybody get injured accessing that area. So since we're here, I thought it would be worth just adding a note on that.
Okay, so our adjournment is recommendation of the Lagoon City Parks and Waters Commission adjourn at 11:31. Put on the floor, Sherry, or Counselor, second by the Commissioner. All in favor? That's passed.